going on, everybody? Welcome back to MLB Swing for the Fences here on the Run Pure Sports YouTube show. It is Thursday, June 12th, a 4-game DraftKings slate, 5-game FanDuel slate to talk about. Filling in for JT, we've got Steve Boyton. Steve, how you doing on this Thursday afternoon?
Doing well. Played some golf earlier today. Getting ready. Got a boys golf trip this weekend down in Snyder and AP land, going to Nebraska for the first time in my life. We'll see how that goes. But hadn't played in a couple of weeks, so I thought I'd go hit the sim for a little bit. And it's U.S. Open weekend, so big golf weekend. Special shout out to Shane Lowry for playing like a 15 handicap at 30% owned for this slate this week.
What'd you expect, man? That's a long course. It's a long way for Shane Lowry to walk.
I know. Should have put that into the model, the 9,000 yard course for the big fatty,
Yeah, I was watching a little bit of that course today. It seemed like it's, I don't know, I'm not a golf nut, but like kind of boring, just long, and the rough is long. But like every hole is just like 530 yard par 4. Once again, I don't know. Look tough out there. I would shoot a very, very high score. So
yeah, I actually played it on the sim today, and very bland course to look at. It's just long and like around the green stuff, and the bunkers are deep. So but yeah, should be a fun weekend.
I'm not even sure I could finish a round in those conditions today. My wrist will break in the rough or something before
I know.
I complete 18 holes. But that's enough golf talk. We got baseball to talk about. I did mention 5 games tonight. So FanDuel did include the Detroit and Baltimore game, which is important, I think, for multiple ways. I think obviously Skubal pitching in that one, and then it's 90 degrees in Baltimore right now, so a good hitting spot too. Steve, I think you're DraftKings only, so I mean, just real quick for me, I want Skubal over there. We'll talk about. There are, I think, some pretty good pitchers on the DraftKings 4-game slate. Namely, I think a really good spot for Framber Valdez, but you're with me there where it's got to be Skubal over Valdez if they're more or less the same price. Do you have a strong opinion on that one?
I mean, I would strongly lean Skubal as well. I think he's clearly a tier ahead of the other arms on this slate. I'm not really worried about the matchup with my Orioles. They haven't hit left-handed pitching pretty much all season.
Right.
They're starting to get a little bit healthier lately. They got Westberg and Cowser back. I think, in decent spots, I think it might be time to start looking at the O's again now that they do have those guys back in. You're not, the back half of the lineup isn't completely dead like it was for a month and a half without those two guys. So, I think it's Skubal over there. And then it's a bullpen day, right, for the O's. I see they're going to start Keegan Aiken.
Yeah, he pitched 2 days ago, like a third of an inning. So I assume he's just going 1. I mean,
yeah, he's only been going 1 inning pretty much the whole season lately.
I don't even know if they'll let him face Torkelson in the 4-hole. He might be he might be his last batter no matter what.
Let me pull up the because the Tigers do a good amount of pinch hitting throughout their lineup. Is there anyone that you're worried about with the bullpen game, going left, right based on matchups here?
I actually really like the Tigers offense. So that's the reason I was kind of looking into, is Torkelson even going to get a hit, get 2 hit off of Aiken. But I mean, like Kerry Carpenter in the 5-hole, I think he'll get right-handers pretty much all game. So I think he looks interesting because people are going to see the left versus left, but I'm not sure he's going to face a lefty. I don't think he's going to face Aiken, and I'm not sure he's going to face a lefty at all. So I do like that 3, 4, 5 for the Tigers. Riley Green, Torkelson, Carpenter makes a lot of sense for me. I am playing that early game. So I did want to at least mention it for people playing the FanDuel slate because it is a pretty good one to kick us off. Any final thoughts there, Steve? Did you see pinch hit stuff that stood out to you?
No, it has some pinch hit risk, but I'm just a huge long-term fan of Parker Meadows. Good to see him back. Really good speed. If he gets on base, he's going to be running. So, he's hitting 9th here, but I think a lot moving forward, he'll be hitting leadoff. Just a guy that we're going to be playing a bunch when the Tigers face right-handed pitching.
Yeah, Vettel's been leading off, I think, against most righties, but it makes sense to have him down in the lineup with the lefty short reliever starting the game. So that's Tigers and Orioles. We'll move over to the DraftKings main 4-game slate, which does start 30 minutes later. It starts with the Royals and the Yankees in Kansas City in Kauffman Stadium, but at 7:40 Eastern time. So, yeah, 2.5 hours from now still. So plenty of time to, make your lineups, all that kind of stuff. But we will get to it. We have, I think, most of the lineups out outside of the
We've got
Brewers.
everyone but the Brewers now, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, so we can certainly go in depth on these games. And yeah, let's get to it. Yankees, Kansas City. Biggest thing here is Yankees missing a couple key bats. Aaron Judge, most notably, out of the lineup. Austin Wells out of the lineup, and Jazz Chisholm. All three of those guys, 3 starters, 3 regulars, out. Of course, it's Judge that makes the biggest difference among those 3 by far. And it does, of course, enhance the matchup for Seth Lugo, who didn't initially make the cut for me pitching-wise, but I think becomes interesting now with those 3 guys out of the lineup. A significantly easier lineup. It's instead of Judge, Jazz, and Austin Wells, you have, Pablo Reyes, JC Escara, and who's even catching in this game?
Escara's catching.
Escara's catching. And then Peraza is in there as well. So just a huge downgrade, obviously, for the Yankees lineup. Curious if that was enough to get you on to Seth Lugo here at 7,800. And then on the other side, a guy I've used quite a bit, Will Warren, did have the horrific start against the Dodgers 2 starts ago. But other than that, he has been really, really good for most of the year. That start, kind of holding down the long-term numbers, along with a couple of rough outings out of the bullpen. But he's delivered plenty of good ones, Steve. I think he's an interesting young pitcher. Curious where you ended up with Warren, Lugo, Yankees, and Royals. I think there are, as often as the case of 4-game slate, but multiple ways you could go about attacking this game.
Yeah, since there's only 4 games, we can kind of do like the pitching first and then the bats. I like both sides. I've been with you on Will Warren. I didn't get burned by that Dodgers start. When I was on the trip. So
you wouldn't use them. I don't use pitchers against the Dodgers anyway. So.
Right. Yeah. Back-to-back tough spots, right? Dodgers and then Boston. This is a safer spot here. Not a huge strikeout upside matchup with the Royals, bottom 3 strikeout rate in baseball. But his stuff is really good, as you know, DC. He's got maybe the best strikeout stuff on this slate. He's got the highest K percentage on this DraftKings slate, at least, if you take off Scooble on the FanDuel slate. I'm actually pulling up K props now. Pitchers going up against the Royals have had obviously depressed K props the entire season. Over 4.5, minus 130-ish. On a smaller slate, I think that's fine. We don't have anyone besides Fromber over it's Fromber at 7-ish, and then Sonny Gray over 5.5, minus 150. So outside of those 2, which are in a different pricing tier, I think Will Warren is pretty clearly the highest upside play on this slate. I don't mind going down, but it was kind of going down to get up to a guy like Judge. So as we build with this slate, every team has a pretty cheap lineup except for the Cubs. Yeah. So I think if you're going down to a Warren, we'll talk about the Milwaukee guy and Tyone as well. I think it might be to go get Cubs now that the Yankees have this cheap lineup. So I think with guys like Jazz and Judge off the slate, DC, I think we're going to see a ton of that Fromber Gray combo just because all of the bats are so cheap on this slate. What do you think about that?
I think you're right. I was going to say, especially Framber's ownership, I think is going to shoot upward. Rightfully so. I think it's kind of hard not to play him. Of course, we'll talk about that game coming up as the last game. But yeah, you're going to see. Everybody wants to spend their salary, right? There's no question. Like, people just don't leave salary on the table. But very, very small percentage of lineups do that. So anytime you take out some of the best, most expensive bats on a small slate and you got a bunch of cheap lineups, it's just by necessity almost, ownership is going to condense on the top price starting pitchers, especially when they're arguably the best plays on the slate anyway. So
Right.
that's not to say you shouldn't play Framber. I still might do it, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's like, I don't know, 70% owned or something. And
I think he's going to end up being that. And also, too, like guys in the back half of these lineups are just not going to be owned because of the pricing here. So really cool tournament slate, I think. With the bats, if I wasn't playing Warren, it would be the lefties, right? Pasquantino, guys like that for KC. We talked before we went live. I think with this Yankees lineup, the bottom third of that order has a bunch of pinch hit risk. We've seen them pretty much the entire season when they tried. Boone doesn't really give like the full days off. Like if this game's close, Escara, Reyes, Peraza, if those spots come up in a big situation in the game, you can see them pulled for Jazz, Judge, Wells.
Or early on in the game if it's big enough. I mean, you got Aaron Judge sitting on the bench. Who knows? He could be in there.
It is cool. Did you see the report, since we only have 4 games, you can kind of check, that they're going to use Ben Rice at catcher when Stanton comes back? That'll be a fun lineup. Getting Wells out, Rice in with Stanton at DH. It's going to be a deep-ass lineup.
I wonder about his ability to play catcher effectively and how that's going to go, but it'll be at least good for DFS purposes.
For us, it'll be fun.
I don't know. Whatever. That's fine. Yankees defense not of foremost concern for us. Any interest at all in the Royals bats? I've been kind of liking they're pretty cheap. I mean, Pasquantino and Caglione. Lefties have hit Warren. Those are the 2 that I like best. Any interest in those guys?
Yeah, I think with the Royals, it would be the 3-man, which is the 3-4-6. Mikel Garcia has really hit right-handed pitching all season. He's got a bunch of speed. If he gets on base, he has no issue stealing. That's how he's going to get his points. I like the 3-4-6 if you're playing the KC mini stacks.
I'll throw Salvi in there, catcher, 3,100 catcher. He's hit home runs in 2 of the last 3 days. I think he's got to be a decent play as well. Also,
with no Judge on the slate, you can make the argument Bobby Witt, best spend-up option on the whole slate. So kind of talking myself into some KC where we don't have Warren. Warren's got the strikeout upside, but we've obviously seen it go south quick for him if he doesn't have his good stuff. So
yeah, I like that Royals, the middle of that Royals lineup quite a bit as maybe a somewhat contrarian stack. Obviously, 4-game slate, everything's going to be owned to some degree. We'll move to the next game. Certainly another interesting one. I think for a 4-game slate, there's a lot to talk about here. Just in general. But yes, St. Louis, Milwaukee, this one in Milwaukee at American Family Field. It'll be Sonny Gray going for the Cardinals. He's been really, really strong this year, too, kind of quietly putting together another very good Sonny Gray season. I mean, 3 of the last 4, he's been dominant, double-digit strikeouts in 2 of the last 4, and some pretty tough matchups. The Dodgers, Rangers have been waking up. The Diamondbacks, obviously, at Philadelphia.
Detroit too.
Yeah, not a cakewalk for Sonny Gray. He's getting the job done anyway. I like what I've seen from him. I do expect him to continue to pitch well. 9,200 against Milwaukee seems pretty fair, especially for a shorter slate with obviously limited options. So ownership, like we said, going to condense, we think, around Framber and Sonny Gray to some extent. But again, I think we both think rightfully so. Looks like a good spot to me for Gray. And then on the other side, we'll see Brewers rookie Mizorowski, top prospect, 6'7" righty. You'll see him likely touch 100 miles per hour with the fastball tonight. One of the highest strikeout rates of any pitcher in the minor leagues anywhere, but a lot of walks to go along with it. 4 or 5 walks per 9 innings at most of his stops. And like I said, a 6'7" pitcher who's, likely still kind of ironing out the mechanics to some extent. Could see this one going either way, Steve. Wouldn't shock me if he comes out blazing and, they can't touch the fastball and maybe he looks dominant through 2 innings and then it all crumbles apart. We saw that with Yuri Perez the other day, who looked awesome through 2 innings, and then it all just fell apart for him. Couldn't find the strike zone. Wouldn't be shocked to see something like that from Mizorowski. I do think he's definitely in play at 8K, and probably seeing his ownership go down a little bit with everybody able to spend up for pitching. So I do think he's a good upside play, but you mentioned in the pre-show chat possibly stacking against him as well, which I think makes sense for a pitcher that we expect to be wild. I don't know, more often than not. I think we're going to see 3+ walks out of him in most starts. Also, I don't know if you looked at this, but they've been a little weird with his pitch counts. They did work him up to the low 90s like a month ago, but he's thrown like 65 pitches in the last 3 games. So not sure what's up with that. It could just be conserving him. They don't want him, they know he's coming up soon. I think that's probably it, but not 100% sure what to expect pitch count-wise from him either. And then obviously, offenses will be, I think, somewhat contrarian here. What'd you end up doing, Steve? St. Louis and Milwaukee.
Yeah, interesting game, right? Like you said, for a small slate, we've got a bunch of really interesting spots. Mizorowski, top prospect for the Brewers, like you said, big-time strikeout rates in the minors. We've seen that, usually translate. It doesn't always, but what does usually translate is the walk rate, right? And he's got big-time walk rates. If he were in the major leagues, this would be the highest walk rate of any starting pitcher in baseball. I think a really, really tough spot for him here. The Cardinals are a disciplined team. I don't know. I'm leaning the Cardinals side here. I think they come in fairly low owned for a 4-game slate. I think people will go, at the same price tags to the Houston guys over St. Louis here. Yeah. I kind of like the Cardinals in this spot. And at these price tags, you can kind of play, the 5-man of your, please, whatever you want to do. I could see this going real bad. We've seen several prospects come up that had better control than him, really implode. I know because we both played them in their debuts. This is a guy who's likely to be good long-term, but I just think it's a good spot on a short slate to take a chance and go against him and these walk rates. Like if you're giving multiple free passes to teams in the major leagues, I mean, I can't even remember seeing a 15% walk rate before.
The thing is, if it goes bad for Mizorowski, it's probably not going to be, like he's dominant but gave up 4 home runs. It's probably going to be he gives up like 9 base runners in 3 innings, right? And it's just struggling, riding the struggle bus the whole time. And that's what you want for a 5-man stack. Get him out of there early, decent place to hit, get into a bad bullpen. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense on the Cardinals. I'm going to have to join you on some Cardinal stacks. And I'm going to play a share too of Mizorowski, but Cardinals do make some sense.
Like you said, the pitch count worries me a bit for using him, but, it's a small slate. I don't think he would be in play on, like a Friday slate or something like that. But because of talent, because of the strikeout rates, I think it's playable. But I'm definitely on the Cardinal side here.
Yeah, you're right. We do usually play these rookie pitchers that come up with upside. Yeah. But usually they're like 5K or
he's priced up for the spot.
Yeah. A walk SGP. That's probably a good idea, to be honest.
Yeah, be there. Cook one up while we're on the show.
Yeah, cook one up better too.
And we will tail it. I mean, if this guy had a 15% walk rate in AA, probably going to be a very volatile pitcher going forward. So
yes, almost certainly going to be a volatile pitcher.
I didn't talk much about Gray. I think there's an argument for Gray over Fromber here. He's just been so rock solid. The Brewers have not hit right-handed pitching at all in the last month. Our hand in the charts got 27th weighted runs created plus, 26 in ISO. So they've been a bottom 5 team against right-handed pitching. We'll talk about Fromber later, with the White Sox kicking it up a little bit offensively. So I think there's at least an argument for Gray over Fromber, especially if one's going to be 70% and one's going to be 30 or 40. I think they're pretty comparable pitchers at this point in their careers. I'm a huge Framber fan, but it never makes me super comfortable playing him into massive chalk, right? Because like we talked about, it's usually not so much matchup dependent for him. It's does he have his stuff or not? He's an odd pitcher. We'll get to that at the end of the show, but I think I might take the ownership discount with Gray over Framber here.
Yeah, looks like right now Sabres got Framber close to 60%, Gray closer to 40. So significant ownership discount, a little bit of a price discount. Makes sense to me. I think if the ownership wasn't a thing, I would lean Framber over Gray, but with that discount, I'm with you. I do think it's very close on who's the better play in tournaments once you factor in the ownership. Can totally buy into that. Any specific Cardinal bats that you think are, must includes in a stack or anything like that?
Yeah, your boy Ivan Herrera hitting third tonight. The most expensive bat, only at 4,400. Gotta like him. Newt Barr's back in there after getting a day off earlier this week. I really don't have any issues with nearly anyone in this lineup. I probably wouldn't play Pages because we're playing Herrera. But I mean, Victor Scott even has speed in the 9. We saw him steal bag yesterday. Gorman obviously has pop. He had a big 3-run home run the other night. So Cardinals usually pretty easy for MME because you just kind of let it fly with their whole lineup. And, they don't really have guys that you have to have besides probably Newt Barr and Herrera here.
Makes sense. We'll be hoping for some wildness from Jacob Mizorowski. Will be fun to see his debut tonight. Not much else to watch in the sporting world, so I'll be probably tuning in to that one myself. Let's go to your neck of the woods, over to Wrigley Field for the Pirates and the Cubs. Winds blowing in. Looks like this will be the most difficult hitting environment of the slate, at least for home runs, which is going to bring Jameson Taillon into play. I've played him a bunch this season in these games in Wrigley where the weather looks good. He's had some good matchups. He's been good. He's come through more often than that, has Taillon. 8,200 seems like a fair price to me for a good place to pitch and, frankly, a pretty damn good matchup for him against a Pirates team that we're obviously not very scared of. So I'm in on Taillon as well. Shaping up to be I think a straightforward pitching slate, almost to the point where I don't want to cut Mizorowski, but I do like Taillon better, just way, way safer, I think. And even the upside, given the duration concerns with Mizorowski, I think the upside's closer than you would think when, you just compare the hotshot rookie and the old grizzled vet. But I think Taillon, look, he's got to 25 multiple times recently. I think he could do it again. So I'm in on Taillon, pretty much out on the Pirates bats other than O'Neal Cruz. I still think is a good play, but he would be about it for me with the Pirates. And then Andrew Heaney going for the Pirates pitching. I'm not going to use Heaney here at 7K against the Cubs. I just don't use pitchers against them often, but I'm not crazy about the Cubs bats with the wind blowing in. What about you? What are you looking at, Pirates and Cubs here, Steve?
Yeah, I wish the wind was blowing out. I might go to this game. We were talking. There's just nothing going on tonight. Might hop on the red line north after the show. The reason I'm not really on the Brewers pitchers, I think this is a pretty straightforward 4-pitcher slate. Framber, Gray, Taillon, Warren. Good spot for Taillon. You mentioned in these weather games, he's just kind of cruised. At home, he's been really good. Really solid the entire season at home. Only 0.76 whip at home this season, 2.7 ERA, and on a pretty good run right now. Really soft matchups, Reds, Colorado, Miami twice.
He feels like a pitcher who is smart enough to take advantage of the weather and the soft matchup and, let him hit some fly balls and take your outs and move on. Yeah.
Taillon's kind of a bum hunter, right? Like he's going to be good in these matchups, and we're not going to use him when he faces the Phillies or something, or Arizona or
Dodgers.
Like that. That's at 8,200, he's got to be in play here. More of like a safe option than a super high upside option, but kind of hard to see him not having just kind of a smooth sailing 15 to 20 DK here for Tyon. So like him a lot. I'm not playing any Haney here. And for the bats, I think now that we don't have Judge, I think like a one-off Cruz makes a ton of sense here, especially if you're using a Warren, if you're using a Tyone. You don't have to stack the Pirates. When Cruz does it, he usually does it all by himself, right? Take a walk, steal second, steal third, and score. So I really like him as a one-off here. And then the Cubs, yeah, I mean, if it was a large slate, I wouldn't be on it. But like I said earlier, now that the Yankees lineup's so cheap, if you're spending down on pitching, these guys are expensive. I think they're going to come in lower owned than these numbers. I mean, Tucker's 6'3", Seiya, who's been absolutely nuking left-handed pitching, probably one of the best one-off plays on the slate, hitting third at 5,300. PCA, who's been incredible, 5,800. So this is the only team where you have to spend up for bats. So I think if you're comfortable with, Warren, Tyone, and taking the risk and fading, the Fromber, Sonny Gray tier, I think the Cubs is your way to go. You're going to need the full stack, right? Like, if these cooler games in Wrigley go off, it's usually, long rallies with balls in the gap. It's not multiple home runs. So, which, kind of lines up too. And the Pirates bullpen, as we know, is pretty bad. So yeah, that's a long way to say that on a larger slate, I wouldn't have any interest. If I go to the game, I've got to put a Cubs 5-man in though, DC.
Got to.
And yeah, I mean, it's not like they're running into a tough pitcher or a tough bullpen here. So,
it's not like it's snowing in Wrigley Field. It's 65 degrees and 10-mile-per-hour winds blowing in, which does have an effect. Yeah.
74 right now.
Yeah,
it'll cool off a bit, but
right. It's not impossible for an offense to do some damage in even it's still summer. So
overall point was that if you play the cheaper pitchers, make sure to 5-man the Cubs, right? Because like if you're playing Fromber and Gray, those lineups are not going to be able to access 2, 3, 4 here for the Cubs.
Yeah, I would say if you're playing the cheaper pitchers, spend all your salary, right? Get the bats in that the people spending up can't. And I don't say this often, but if you are spending up on pitching, I do think it's a decent slate to actually leave some salary on the table because most people that spend up, of course, will use all of it. So maybe a little game theory action. That's Pittsburgh and Chicago. Last game of the night to talk about here is White Sox and the Houston Astros. Obviously, we've mentioned Framber Valdez several times in passing during the slate. He's on one of those Framber runs right now where it's lights out every time, going deep into games, 7, 9, 6, 7, 8 innings in his last 5, approaching or exceeding double-digit strikeouts in most of them, right around 100 pitches and getting the job done time after time.
I feel like he has a run like this every season.
I know, and I don't really want to fade the Framber Valdez run against the White Sox at home. I mean, we've talked about this, or I have talked about the White Sox being a little bit better against righties. They can kind of get some guys like Benintendi and Tauchman in there who are kind of tough on right-handed pitching. Against lefties, they don't have much at all, though. It gets, I think, quite a bit worse for the White Sox, and I think this looks like a really, really strong spot for Framber Valdez, who I do think is the number one pitcher. He'll be owned as such, but to me, I still think worth playing on this slate. So I'm going to play in, for the most part, into that Framber Valdez chalk. No interest for me on this slate on Davis Martin, just too many good pitching options. So he's off the list. So I guess that mostly narrows it down to what do you want to do with the Houston offense. I know you're in on Framber, at least to some degree. Talk to Steve, White Sox and Astros.
Yeah, I mean, he's on a sick run. During the last, 10 starts, he's got a 67% ground ball rate back to the Fromber of, like when he's dialed in, he has the big curve. It's really hard to hit. And why he's able to go so deep is if he ever walks a guy, it's like an auto ground, double play for a quick inning. So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to argue that it's not a good spot and he's not a good play. I think I'm going to play 3 lineups tonight and everything. I'll probably have him on 2 or 3. I think that makes sense here. I will say if you're not playing him, it would be the top. It would be 1, 2, 3, 5. Austin Slater there in the 3-hole has pinch hit risk, but we know he's a power bat, and the one thing if it goes wrong for Fromber is he'll give up some power. So Vargas has hit lefties this year. Vargas, Slater, Luis Robert, and like they might have something with Chase Meadroff there as the.
He's what I was going to mention. He's the one I'm playing on FanDuel where I'm playing Scooble and want that lead off, one off for cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Makes a lot of sense. I think he's my yeah. But you mentioned the other ones. I wouldn't go crazy with the White Sox, but
no,
cheap better too is fine.
Yeah, you don't want to stack against Fromber because he just doesn't give up rallies. It's the random power. So if I was playing any one-offs, it would only be 1, 2, 3, 5 for the White Sox. No interest in Martin here, but man, I kind of think that the Astros come in pretty significantly as the highest owned offense here. I don't love it. I like the Cardinals more. I like the Yankees more. Even the Kansas City,
and the Cubs,
and the
Put
Cubs.
the Astros out of here. No need for this Astros score.
I think the Astros are like the 4th best stack on the slate, and they're going to be played like they're by far the best. So that's going to be my big stand here. I'm going to hope that Martin can kind of get through this lineup. They haven't really done much at all this season, obviously, against right-handed pitching. And they've been, DC, especially bad of late. Like, they had that hot run for a week or two, but last 14 days against right-handed pitching, DC, 29th in weighted runs created plus, 25th in ISO. That's kind of what we saw for the first month and a half of the season with this team against righties. So
I never, if I'm trying to hold on for something, it's like I never feel bad about fading the Astros. Always a good chance that they're going to disappoint. So yeah, they seem like it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like we're fading him because there's some underrated thing about the White Sox pitcher that think he's good or something. But he does get a lot of ground balls. He's been solid this year. It's just kind of a stand that I want to make.
They're a station-to-station team relying on home runs, but they don't have much power. It's not. Yeah.
Also, like if you're playing single entry on the slate and you're double spending a pitcher, I probably wouldn't double spend with the 5 Astros. It's just going to be the most popular way. I would play the Cardinals or play the Royals, something like that. So that's kind of how I'm going to play the slate. I'm going to play the 4 pitchers that we talked about: Fromber, Gray, Tyone, Warren. Probably in that exact order, DC. I think it's in that order here. And then it'll be Cardinals, that first game in KC, and then some Cubs, especially if I end up going to the game. The 5 Cubs with the O'Neill one-off coming back.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it. That is all 4 games. I suppose we could do a 4-game slate dong draft. Why not?
Oh, yeah. Wait, we should recap from Tuesday. I don't think we got one on Tuesday. Let me pull it up on my notes here.
Don't recap if we didn't get any. You have to be prepared for this.
No, we didn't get any. So we will reset here.
All right. Well, we gotta get the bad taste out of our mouths with some home runs today. You always steal my guy, so I'm going to take first pick.
Yeah, you go first here.
I'm getting on the board with a chance for a 1.5er with Jack Caglione for the Royals.
Caglione, 1.5. I'm going to steal your guy here. Ivan Herrera going yard tonight for the Cardinals. Anchoring my Cardinals 5-man against, after back-to-back walks to start the game, we get the 3-run bomb. Just like what happened when we both used Mike Burrows against the Brewers.
Yeah. That's how it goes sometimes. I'm taking perhaps the chalky O'Neal Cruz.
All right, O'Neal.
4-game slate, everybody's on the table.
Yep. Especially since Judge is not playing here.
Right.
I will go Cody Bellinger.
And you know what? I'm going double lefty off of Will Warren. Give me Vinny Pasquantino.
I
think the Royals' offense is about to get hot. It's hopefully
kind of I need a 1.5x here. You know what? I'm gonna go with one. I'm gonna go with the guy that I talked about earlier, who's probably strike out twice and then get pulled. Austin Slater, notorious lefty masher.
Big Platoon would be proud of your pick here.
What? Oh yeah! Shout out to Tony. If it were a bad lefty that the White Sox were facing, Austin Slater would be right there in the core.
He's probably in a grumpy mood with Bryson sucking it up this morning on all my lineups. So there's my PGA complaint.
Yeah, when I turned on the broadcast, it was like him and Lowry, and basically 2/3 of my team was like +5 already. I was like, oh, great.
Always fun. Always fun to golf. All right. That'll do it. Or no. Pitching, we kind of went over it, but my preferred combination is Valdez and Gray. Mm-hmm. And I think, to me, Taillon is a clear third.
Yeah.
I think there's 5 you could use. Mizorowski and Warren would be the other 2. But I think a clear top 3 for me, Valdez, Gray, Taillon. Yeah,
I think it's in that order. Valdez, Gray, Taillon, Warren. Warren being the most volatile. I think the other 3 are pretty damn safe here. And yeah, I mean, I'm going to play both sides of the Warren thing. I think we're both on the Royals here.
Yeah.
Somewhat. I will say the 2 worst bullpen, on a smaller slate, like the bad pens are Pittsburgh, White Sox, Brewers right now. But yeah, my stacks are Cardinals, the first game, and the Cubs.
Yeah, Cardinals. I've got some Royals, and thinking about getting some more Cubs in my life against Andrew Heaney and the Pirates. That'll do it, though, for this show. Appreciate everybody watching. Get on over to Run Pure Sports. If you remember, we'll be in the Discord answering questions, getting ready for the 4-game slate. So got a couple hours before that starts. But, the show will be back tomorrow. It'll be Steve and Stats, I believe, on the Friday show. Yep. Till then, he's Steve Boyd, and I'm Draft Cheat. We're out of here.